And we're back.
Episode 251 of The Horror Guys.
Starting on our second, not a
second,
trimester, or what do you call it, 250th group?
Quarter. Our second quarter.
Our second
of 1,000.
centiquarter. I don't know. There's probably a word for it. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll talk about some movies for you this week. Just as always, we got some good stuff for you this week. It's
Killer Animal Week.
Rawr. What do we got?
Oh, we got so many good things. We got Pet Sematary, Bloodlines.
Which, oddly enough, really doesn't have much in the way of... It does
There
have
is
a dog.
There is a zombie dog in it.
But it's not really.
That's not the feature, no. But the other creatures are creature features. It's Anaconda and the brand new one, Zombeavers. Well, fairly new. And Slotherhouse.
Yeah, Slotherhouse of 2023. That's the new one. Zombeavers been out a little while.
Yeah. And then the bonus films are Grizzly. What could be scarier than a grizzly bear? A giant prehistoric grizzly bear.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't normal. It was prehistoric, wasn't it? Because, regular grizzlies aren't scary enough.
Yeah. Well, and it was kind of crazy, too. Yeah. And piranhas. No, just Piranha.
Just Piranha.
Piranha.
There's many of them, but there's no S in the name.
Title, yeah, from 1978.
Which I believe has been a remake at some point.
Yeah, it has.
I think I saw that.
And their sequels
way
too.
back.
Yeah. One of them is sequels is a 3D one, where the piranhas fly out of the water at you, and it's really terrifying.
Of course it is.
But anyway, this was where it all started, 1978, because little fishies are scary.
All right.
When they got razor sharp teeth. And attack in packs, they can be. Yeah.
Well, we'll get to those in a minute. Before we get to that, got a couple of announcements. The Horror Guy's Guide to the Films of Amicus Productions is out right now. Came out about a week or two ago, and it has all those anthologies you loved from the 70s. If Hammer didn't make it, Amicus did. It's got Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee and all kinds of good stuff. Even got a couple of weird offbeat Doctor Who movies, which really isn't horror, but hey, they made them. They were cool.
And what I like about that collection of stuff they did too, there's the well-known things and the horror actors and actors that you've certainly heard of, and then there's just weird obscure stuff.
Oh yeah,
that they did too. That actually really, I thought a lot of that was entertaining. I watched a lot of it with Brian.
The Land Before Time, the people that time forgot, well, and stuff
those,
like that.
Those musical anthology ones too.
Oh, yeah. It's trad, Dad.
Yeah, which was basically just a series of music videos, more or less, kind of strung together with a story.
Yeah. They had some weird stuff.
All kinds of cool stuff.
And I want to mention another podcast, movienightsandmatinees.com. I recently appeared there to talk about silent films. We discussed my book, The Horror Guy's Guide to the Age of Silent Films. And the host there, Bill Groves, he does a podcast about really old movies, like really old.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to his stuff, and he's into different media types too, including the old, like 6mm. And,
apparently, he's a major collector of, like the old. Is it 6mm, 8mm?
8mm, all the millimeters.
Before our time, and we're pretty old.
Yeah, some not just old movies, but old media too.
Yeah.
And he really knows this stuff about. Movies right from the beginning on up to the modern day.
Yeah. So his episode 19 is about silent films. You want to check that one out. And if you like old movies in general, check out his whole podcast. Not horror.
No.
That's our podcast. movienightsandmatinees.com. But our website, horrorguys.com, has all our reviews on it. Check out all the spoilery reviews that we're going to talk about here today. The new ones, like Pet Sematary, Bloodlines, and Slotherhouse, we're not going to spoil to death. Old movies like Anaconda,
those are fair game
today.
Those are fair game. We can talk about those.
Yeah, we'll spoil them to death.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, and of course there's our weekly newsletter over at horrorbulletin.com where you can read about Grizzly and Piranha. And I think we liked both of them.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Grizzly was a little tame compared to some, but it was good.
Grizzly seemed very suitable for TV. It was kind of TV level tame.
It had some blood and gore, but
some.
Not enough to really matter if they cut it out for network TV.
I was impressed. It was interesting watching Grizzly, how they did the effects. Lots of quick cuts. They'd show a grizzly claw, and then somebody with blood on them. And then
A severed leg or something.
another flash of Grizzly. And, it was really effective, the editing, the way they spliced a lot of quick cuts.
It was
during the attacks.
pre-CGI, and they didn't want to have a guy in a bear suit, so they used a real bear, I guess.
For some of it, yeah. Some of it was models, paw parts, grizzly parts. But,
and then there was that Piranha movie from '78, and that was a documentary. That was all true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It did eat all those campers.
Yeah. I remember reading about that at the time.
All right, but one we really are going to talk about all the way through, not all the way, we're not going to spoil it, is Pet Sematary Bloodlines 2023. It's the prequel we didn't need.
Yeah, pretty much.
Directed by Lindsay Anderson Beer, written by Lindsay Anderson Beer, Jeff Bueller, and Stephen King, although I don't know that Stephen King really had a lot to do with it this time.
I think he just sprinkled his, blessing upon it.
Stars Jackson White, Natalie Allen Lind, Forrest Goodluck, and Isabella LeBlanc. Hour and 27 minutes. Spoiler free. It's a years ago prequel of young Judd and his misadventure, showing us the story that he told us as an old man. Yeah, in both the original and the remake, old Judd, he tells the, what's the main guy's name? Gage? No, Gage is the kid.
Gage is the kid. I can't remember the main character's name.
Well, whatever the main character's name is. The old Judd is the old man, Sometimes dead is better. And he tells the story about this kid that died in Vietnam, and his parents buried him and brought him back, and things went badly from there. Well, this is that whole story fleshed out into a movie.
Yep.
Everything was fine as far as cast and production values go. It just kind of felt unnecessary with few surprises, especially if you've seen or read the original. Yeah, it's that story we already know, just feature length.
Yeah.
Well, how's it get started?
Well, we hear about growing up in Ludlow, Maine, and the Pet Sematary. Behind that place was an evil place that was said to bring back the dead. Sometimes dead is better.
Credits roll.
Yes, and credits roll. Well, it's 1969. Bill Bateman drags a dead body through the woods. And if you've ever seen the films in the other series or read the book, he digs a hole, makes a grave in a place that looks oddly familiar. Except it worked quick. We see a hand reach up out of the grave and grab the dog that's standing there.
It's been a week or so since we've seen that. Is this the only time the actual Pet Cemetery comes into the movie?
No, they visited again, too.
Why?
I can't spoil. It would be a spoiler if I say. Too spoilery.
Okay.
They do, yeah. It is revisited.
All right. I'm just thinking okay, all right.
Yeah.
And then what?
Well, we meet Judson Crandall, his parents, Kathy and Dan, and his girlfriend, Norma. Judd runs into Bill at the store, and they all look at a photograph of Timmy, Bill's son. Bill says Timmy just got back from Vietnam.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Everyone is glad to hear that Timmy came home in one piece.
Well, that's not entirely accurate.
Well, he did come home in one piece. That part is accurate. Now, one point that I wondered about at this point, though, how did he get Timmy's body? That's not something you just get or can walk away with without people noticing. And he was killed in action, so there would be the official record, and he would have been shipped over from Vietnam in official, military transport for a cadaver.
Yeah, I was thinking he dug him up after the funeral, but then everybody in town would know he was dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not what happened.
Everybody in town has the story that he was honorably discharged.
If you stole the body from a mortuary, that would have been news, too. That would have
been news, yeah. You can't steal, assuming that it
would have. Did the postman just bring the corpse to the house? Special delivery?
No, I don't think that works that way. I mean, the military would have sent it, to the U.S., and then from U.S. it would have come to his town by train, I'm assuming, and then, be officially received and recorded and somehow he got Timmy's body.
Yeah, I don't think you want to think about any of this too hard.
Yeah. Well, Judson and Norma plan to join the Peace Corps, and his parents are skeptical. But Dan suggests that maybe Judd shouldn't come back, because this town seems to suck people in and never let them go.
It seemed like Dan, the father, he knows some things.
Yeah. Well, Mayor Benson talks to Marjorie about finding an open grave big enough for a person, and then some. And he says they're on watch tonight. So,
could it be happening again?
They know something is up. Judd and Norma get into the car to leave town, but they encounter Bateman's dog, and it's filthy and sickly looking. They walk the dog home and encounter Timmy, who doesn't appreciate that Judd didn't go to war.
Remember, this is right at the Vietnam was either ongoing or just over at this point.
Oh, it's still ongoing.
Yeah, and everybody, and since Judd didn't go, he's kind of looked down upon.
Mm-hmm. Well, we cut to Manny and Donna Rivers, two Native Americans who talk about modern music and her art projects. They go outside and talk about Judd leaving town. She's been invited to do an art show in Buffalo, so she'll be leaving too. Well, Timmy's dog attacks Norma, and she goes into shock. He takes her to the hospital. She'll be fine in a day or two, but this puts a crimper on their leaving town. Well, Judd runs into Manny, who's been avoiding him, so they don't have to say goodbye. Judd, Manny, and Timmy were all childhood chums. And Judd goes back to see Timmy, but Bill says Timmy isn't taking any visitors right now. He needs time to adjust. When Bill isn't friendly about Judd avoiding going to war, we meanwhile cut to Timmy, who is making a list in blood.
Oh, my.
And finger painting in blood, basically.
And that's probably where we should stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it seems like everyone of importance in this town knows that Timmy's a monster, so why they didn't do anything about it?
I mean, it did take them a little while. They found the open grave, so they knew that somebody buried somebody. Yeah. It takes them a little while to figure out that it's Timmy.
They all seem to know the history of the town and what happens.
Yeah, they do.
And
soon the elders, the town elders.
It becomes obvious that it is Timmy. All the town people know who it is.
And they spend way too long farting around without doing anything about it.
Yeah. Overall, it's a feature-length retelling of what Judd told Creed, that's the character's name, in the original Pet Sematary from 1989 and the later remake. It's fine, but there really aren't any surprises. We know how this is going to end because we've heard the story. It's all kind of generic and wasn't a necessary story that needed to be told. It was well done. If you don't know what happens, it might be a fine prequel, I suppose. Mm-hmm. If you're just getting into it, this could be a starting place.
You could watch this first and then Pet Sematary.
It might be better that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes first is better.
Yeah, sometimes.
What's next?
Cute little creatures. Sloths. Aren't they adorable?
They're slow. They're so cute.
Slow,
they're cuddly.
And they're kind of smiley and happy little creatures.
Well, this time we've got Slotherhouse from 2023. And I think they only put that name in there so they could use that one line in the movie.
It works.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Directed by Matthew Goodhue, written by Bradley Fowler and Katie Lanigan. Stars Olivia Royer, Lisa Mbalavinar, Stefan Kapicic. Boy, these names are something today.
Yeah.
And Sidney Craven, hour and 33 minutes. Spoiler-free what happens.
This was an absurd creation that is really darkly funny throughout the whole thing. I like how they did the slasher tropes, but it's not the typical killer.
This is not Jason.
No. I mean, sloths, they're cute, fuzzy, little harmless creatures, right? No. That's what they want us to think. It was really well made, and it's so dumb that it ascends into good.
Yeah, I've seen several reviews on this where people just rag on it being so stupid. And
well,
yes,
yeah,
it is stupid.
Point.
It is intentionally stupid.
Yes, it is.
Well, we open in the jungles of Panama. The happy sloth is happy. He's smiling and doing his slothy things. But then something jumps up out of the water and eats it. No. It fights off the crocodile and escapes right into the clutches of some hunters.
He's caught.
It messed up that crocodile.
Yeah.
Well, we cut over to Emma and Madison, two sisters who talk about Emma becoming the president of her sorority. She talks to a man who owns a sloth for a pet, and he says, oh, they're no trouble at all. Well, it's move-in day at the sorority, and stuck-up Brianna doesn't even remember Dakota. She also wants to be president. We're introduced to what seems like about 6,000 characters by name, and we're never going to remember all of them. They got like these little text boxes, like a social media profile. It's kind of a neat idea.
But they're quick, and there's a lot of them.
They're quick, and they're tiny print, and there's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters. Yeah.
Miss Mayflower is there, and she's the drunken house mother. I guess all the house mothers are drunk. You'd have to be. Why would you want to do that job?
Yeah.
Tyler, Emily's boyfriend, comes for a visit, but he's assaulted on the way in. Emily asks Miss Mayflower about her mother, who was president way back in the day. Well, we cut to the man with the sloth and see that the sloth does not live in a happy place anymore. What would happen if I don't give you these pills, huh? He asks. What do you think? The sloth is depressed?
Yeah.
Well, Emily texts him about the sloth. She thinks having a cute mascot will help her win the election. After he sets up a time for her to come over, the sloth tears him apart.
This is not a typical sloth.
Well,
or is it? Are all sloths
maybe.
like this?
We don't
They
know.
only want you to think they're slow and docile.
With the next morning, Emily comes to the man's house and meets the sloth. The man isn't around, so she just takes him. Brianna accosts Emily when she gets home, and everyone falls in love with the cute little sloth. They adopt it for a house mascot, and Emily announces she's running for president. Madison warns Emily about the hazards of using poached animals as pets. It's a wild animal, Emily. Send it back. Another friend gives her pills and says the sloth has to take them for anxiety. The sloth now, alone in the room, gets on the internet and checks out Emily's social media accounts. When he sees a photo of the exotic animal seller, he gets angry and spits out the pill.
We should stop there. Should we?
Yeah, it just gets weirder from there.
It gets weirder.
Once you see the sloth on the internet, you know how this is going.
These girls are doomed.
The sorority president. I see they're all worried about the truly important things in life.
Mm-hmm.
So much energy goes into that stuff. The little profiles of the characters are a nice idea when each one is introduced, but they don't stay on screen long enough to really read them, so they aren't that helpful. The sloth here is a puppet, which is obvious from the get-go. I don't think there's any real sloth images.
No, I don't think so.
It kind of gives off the Mogwai vibes from 1984's Gremlins, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's cute and he's cuddly and he's... Still, he's a really smart sloth who can read, use a mouse, and browse the internet. That was pretty impressive until he stole a car and used the GPS.
Yeah,
wow.
It gets pretty wild.
It plays on many of the usual tropes from slasher films, borrowing from many major hits. This one, however, is stupid to the point of hilarity. It's really a terrible, terrible, terrible film, but it's hard not to laugh throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this terrible, terrible, terrible film.
It's terrible on purpose. It is a difference when they do it on purpose versus just, something they slop together and really is terrible.
Yeah, this is not a sloppy comedy. This is not a sloppy horror movie that's bad. It's a well-done comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Short film we watched called Leech from this year, directed and written by George Coley. Stars Sandra Oh, Josh Katembella. Is he the one who gives Chucky his powers?
Mm-hmm.
Katembella. Graham O'Mara, 10 minutes and 6 seconds. What happens?
An older woman watches TV, and we see that she's blind. The young man in the hallway, who's there, seems to avoid the old woman, and vice versa. Well, a healthcare worker stops by and bandages a burn on the old woman's hand. He suggests that she shouldn't be living alone. But she's not, right? And why don't the healthcare workers seem to ever come back for a second visit?
Yeah, he says he'll come back next week, and she says, no, you won't.
No,
None of the healthcare workers ever seem to come back.
They always say that, but they always just don't stop coming. And she mentions, that she's a widow. And, sometimes it seems like Bill is still here with me. Is he, though?
Well, it's very well acted, and the cinematography is outstanding. We get a pretty good idea of what's going on right away, but we don't know why or how this is going to turn out. It's a little weird.
Was weird and creepy.
Yes.
Very unsettling.
What's next?
Another very serious horror movie. Zombeavers from 2014.
Directed by Jordan Rubin, written by Al Kaplan, Jordan Rubin, and John Kaplan. Starred Rachel Melvin, Courtney Palm, Lexi Atkins, and Hutch Dano. I got through that without mangling anybody's name.
Yay.
Hour and 17 minutes. Spoiler-free, what happens?
This one does a good job doling out horrifying and hilarious in equal measure. It's both. It's not
quite as silly
funny,
as the
not
Slotherhouse.
as silly as Slotherhouse, but it's got plenty of it. But there's a lot of real horror in it too. And as the title hints, normally harmless beavers become killer beasts, Zombeavers. They cause some real trouble for a group of young friends, and we liked the grim, silly fun of it quite a bit.
Yeah, again, this is not going to win any Academy Awards. But,
No.
but we both liked it.
Yeah, this was I mean, the Slotherhouse had a high body count, but it didn't seem as grim as this one does.
It's a cabin in the woods kind of story.
Yeah, yeah.
They're more isolated and scared and monsters.
And trapped and yeah.
Well, we watch as two guys drive a truck full of medical waste stuff. They hit a deer, and one of the canisters falls off the truck into the river. They're like, oh, well, let's go. Credits roll as we follow the canister floating downriver, where it eventually stops next to a beaver nest. Jen, Zoe, and Mary are going away for the weekend with their dog Bugsy. They're all going to Mary's cousin's cabin in the woods. Well, we cut to some kid out fishing. He loses his rod, and then something jumps him from the woods.
And he's wearing a very distinctive baseball cap.
Yeah.
And later we see that baseball cap floating in the water. That's all that's left of him.
Mrs. Gregerson comes over to meet the new girls when they arrive, and they soon find out there's no cell service in the cabin, which is a major disaster for these college girls. They were probably waiting to see who got elected sorority president. They waste no time going skinny dipping, because, yes, it's that kind of movie. We then see the fishing guy's hat floating by.
Yep, there goes.
They notice that there's a beaver dam on the lake, and they don't see the biohazard tank on the other side of the dam. At this point, Kevin's like, look at that water. That's disgusting.
Oh, yeah, that was awful. The water they swim in.
Green slime floating on top.
This
is not a special effect. This is just a nasty old pond.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see any beavers, but they do see a big bear. Mr. Smythe shoots at the bear and runs it off. He warns them that beavers aren't usually cuddly little animals. They'll mess you up.
These beavers especially.
Well, even more than usual.
Yeah.
Well, that night, there's a knock outside the cabin. They all go outside to investigate and accidentally get locked out. Nope, it's just Tommy, Sam, and Buck, their unwanted, uninvited boyfriends. Jen and Sam had a recent argument, so she's not enthusiastic about him being there, but she'll allow them to stay. Everyone goes inside, and then there's some sex and stuff. Jen enters the bathroom and finds a very angry beaver in the bathtub. Everyone goes to look, and they beat it to death with a baseball bat. They all assume it had rabies, and later we see that dead beaver still moving. Why?
Because it's a Zombeaver.
Yes. In the morning, we see Mr. Smythe outside setting traps. The 6 vacationers all head back to the lake again, even after encountering that rabid beaver. Soon they're all swimming in the beaver lake again. Sam and Mary talk about him cheating on Jen with Mary. Oh, that's awkward.
There's drama, yeah.
Suddenly, something bites Buck's foot off. Well, okay then.
It escalated quickly.
They all swim to the raft except for Jen, who returns to the cabin to call for help. Of course, the beavers are smart enough to have chewed through the phone lines. They're not on the internet, though.
No.
Sam throws Zoe's dog into the water as a distraction, and the beavers quickly eat it. Yes, they did.
Yes, the dog dies.
They all swim for the shore while the beavers are busy with the dog. Meanwhile, Jen fights another one in the kitchen. They all run into the house, which zombie beavers now surround. Zoe tells Jen about Mary and Sam, but the dead zombie in the kitchen is now cut to pieces, but even the little pieces won't stop moving.
This is a problem.
Beaver meat.
Yeah.
Tommy carries Buck to the car with Zoe in tow. They get inside and drive off. But they soon find a tree down across the road out. Looks like a lot like a beaver chewed it down. Tommy is soon killed by the beavers dropping another tree on him. Meanwhile, the Gregersons next door hear the noise and wonder about investigating.
And that goes poorly for them.
Smythe rescues Zoe and Buck from the beavers. Jen, Mary, and Sam barricade the house to keep the insane, unkillable animals from breaking in. Smythe talks about the beaver fever from back in the 70s. Since they can't get into Mary's boarded-up cabin, Smythe, Zoe, and Buck make it to the Gregersons. They find the old couple dead and a phone with a cord chewed through.
They like to chew. Beavers
like to chew on phone cords. Jen comes into Mary's room and climbs on top of her. But then she mutates into a giant beaver. Yes, she got bit.
So
Best scene in the movie.
Things are even worse than we realized.
Sam knocks her over the head and locks her in the bedroom. At the other house, Smythe and Zoe try to cauterize Buck's leg wound until Buck turns into a beaver and bites Smythe's face off.
This is
These
going
beaver
poorly.
people are something to see, too.
Oh, they are. That makeup is something.
Mary and Sam play whack-a-mole, or is it whack-a-beaver, tunneling up through the floor. They lock themselves in the bathroom and get naked because why wouldn't they?
Sure, why not?
Outside, a beaver sets the house on fire. Suddenly, Jen breaks through the floor. Jen, who's a Zombeaver now,
Yeah.
breaks through the floor and bites Sam right where she wanted to bite him all along.
That looked painful.
Revenge. Zoe runs Smythe's truck through the wall and Mary climbs in. Zombeaver Smythe now shoots at them and they crash the truck. Then they run into a Zombear in the woods. Yes, the beavers got that bear. Mary and Zoe get away. Mary thinks Zoe's been bitten since she's covered in blood, but suddenly Mary changes all of a sudden, so Zoe hits her repeatedly with an axe. Zoe then eventually gets run over by the same guys in the hazardous waste truck as before. Worst drivers ever.
Yeah, they are.
Well, and that's the end, but be sure to wait through the outtakes to hear the closing theme song.
And there is a final after credit scene, too.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Well, it's a different kind of cabin in the woods story. The zombie beavers are one thing, but the humans turned beavers are really something.
Yes, they are.
They don't just turn into zombies, they turn into beavers. The makeup on Jen Beaver is really, really good. I thought it started off pretty lame and slow, but once Jen became a beaver, it got a lot more interesting very quickly.
That did dial it up, yes.
It's dumb, but it's another one of those so dumb that it's pretty entertaining films. Yes, Zombeaver. Wow. All right, so after a couple of weird comedy, horror, animal movies, we come down to a dead serious documentary about snakes.
Uh-huh.
What do we got?
Big snakes. Anaconda from 1997, which was directed by Louis Loza, written by Hans Bauer, Jim Cash, and Jack Epps. This stars Jennifer Lopez, Ice Cube, John Voight, Eric Stoltz, and Jonathan Hyde. All the faces in this are recognizable. Have done lots of other stuff. Runtime is 1 hour and 29 minutes. There's a trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free? Well, when a film crew seeking a lost tribe in the Amazon encounters a hunter obsessed with a giant snake, bad things happen. It's entertaining, kind of a dumb movie, but a fun kind of dumb. The CGI is obvious. I don't think that has aged very well, but it's forgivable, and the practical effects are pretty good. And overall, still thumbs up. We liked it. Liked it more than disliked it.
It's not really funny.
It's not funny.
It's not funny like the others.
It's fun. It's not funny.
Yeah. Well, we're told in scrolling text that anacondas are badass as credits roll. They go into a bit more detail than that, but that's the gist of it. Well, a poacher, Danny Trejo, desperately tries to radio for help, but something is attacking his boat. You know, he was young once.
Mm-hmm. He is so much younger.
This is 26 years ago.
Yeah.
Something out there is attacking his boat. He shoots the thing below him, and out of fear, he shoots himself in the head. That seems a bit counterproductive.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, we go to somewhere else, and we talk to Terry Flores, who answers the door in the Amazon jungle of Brazil. Dr. Stephen Cale has returned to talk about his new grant. He's gotten the money to find this remote tribe in the jungle, and Terry is the best documentary director he knows for the expedition. Well, we cut over to Terry and the cameraman Danny boarding a chartered boat with Stephen. Mateo runs the boat, and he's kind of sleazy looking. Warren Westridge arrives, and he's the pompous host of the documentary. He's the voice. Production assistant Denise is there, as is Owen Wilson, playing the same character he always plays, but this time, for some reason, he's named Gary.
He does tend to do that. I think he just learns lines and
he just shows up. Yes.
Yeah.
The boat departs, and the rainstorms soon start. They soon encounter Paul Cerrone, a hunter who's stuck with a ruined boat. He says he catches snakes for a living now, but doesn't like the word poaching. Elsewhere, we see a giant snake kill and eat a large panther.
Big snake.
A big snake, yes.
Yeah.
Paul then leads them right to the area where the lost tribe is said to live, and they see a big snake totem. He tells about a legend, but Stephen knows he's wrong, and may even be lying about everything. Paul does not appreciate being doubted. Paul is John Voight, being as weird as John Voight has ever been.
He's, yeah.
He talks like Scarface, like a Cuban accent. But he looks like John Voight.
But he looks like John Voight. Yeah. But he's a weirdo.
Yeah. Denise and Gary sneak off into the woods and start making out in the dark, dirty, filthy, buggy, animal-coated jungle. But a wild boar chases them, and Paul shoots it. Okay, that didn't go too badly. A rope gets caught in the boat's propeller, so Stephen goes down with his diving equipment to cut it loose. But he chokes on a deadly poisonous wasp that's hiding inside his mouthpiece. Ooh.
Jungles are dangerous.
Paul cuts his throat open to do a tracheotomy, and that seems to work okay. But he's going to take some recovery time.
Mm-hmm.
Mateo reports that the boat's radio doesn't work, and Paul shows them a shortcut that will cut down their time to get to a hospital. Danny doesn't trust Paul, but Terry says they really don't have any choice. Well, there's a big wall or a dam or something blocking the river, so Paul opens up a big bag of dynamite.
That he just happens to
Just
have with
happen
him.
to have that, yeah. That wall must be there for a reason, Denise argues. Is it keeping something in or keeping something out? Well, they want to get to the hospital, so they have to blow it up. Paul and Gary set the dynamite, and the bridge blows to bits, covering the entire boat in snakes.
That's kind of a pandemonium scene. It's raining snakes. Literally, this thing was just loaded with them, and it blows them all over the place. It's just raining down on them everywhere.
Not giant snakes, just hundreds and hundreds of little snakes.
Little snakes, yeah.
One of them tries to eat Warren's finger, and that's kind of a nasty scene. They also lose most of their fuel barrels in the explosion. They soon come upon the poacher's boat, the one who died at the film's beginning. We see that Paul knew the dead poacher. There's a picture of him on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They grab a few things and leave, but Mateo gets eaten by a huge snake on the way back to the main boat.
An anaconda.
The anaconda.
Yeah.
Paul says it was probably an anaconda, and then he describes what that's like. He said he'd love to capture it alive. It'd be worth a lot of money, he says, in perfect Scarface accent, which I'm not doing. By morning, Paul has convinced Gary to help him catch the snake. Because money.
Yes.
Gary tells everyone else that it's the best way to proceed since that whole tribal documentary thing has been ruined. Not long after, Paul hooks a gargantuan snake on his line. It breaks the line, but Paul shoots it with a tranquilizer. Gary and Denise wind up knocked into the water, and the snake crushes Gary. Terry picks up a rifle, and Paul yells, "It's no good to me dead," as he hits the gun and ruins her aim. About this time I've noticed that these giant snakes that they keep showing us, they're different colors. There is more than one of them.
Oh.
Although that's not really a big plot point.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that.
One's kind of brown, one's kind of green. And their eyes are different.
Oh.
So, yeah.
It's not a anaconda. It's many giant anacondas.
Well, maybe there's just one of them that's after them like Jaws. But yeah, there's more than one in the movie.
I totally missed that.
Paul orders Warren to do things and then slaps him around when he refuses. We cut to the snake, which has a humanoid bulge, an Owen Wilson-shaped bulge protruding from its belly.
Yep.
Terry later tries to seduce Paul as a distraction, but he's got a one-track mind, and it's not her. It doesn't matter because Danny and Warren whack Paul over the head and tie him up. Paul later admits that the whole thing has been a setup, even the wasp. Wondered how that got in there.
Mm-hmm. Now we know.
Well, the boat hits a sandbar, so Danny suggests they can winch their way off. And of course, this involves everyone getting into the water and tying off ropes. Apparently, this whole river is like waist deep and like scummy everywhere.
And full of giant anacondas.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Denise pulls a knife on Paul. He manages to choke her to death using only his legs. He then kicks her overboard and uses her knife to cut himself loose. Well, the snake attacks and Warren climbs up a waterfall. Paul stabs Danny in the leg. The snake gets Warren while everyone's busy fighting amongst themselves. And it also knocks a big tree down onto the boat in the process, so they aren't going anywhere soon. The snake then grabs Danny, but starts chewing on Denise's body and lets him go. Well, Paul gets the drop on Danny and Terry, but Stephen wakes up and tranquilizes Paul. Somehow they get the boat moving again, and they come to an old mine. They need fuel, so they stop to check it out. Paul returns and ties up Terry and Danny. Then he douses them in monkey blood.
They are bait.
Bait, yes.
Uh-huh.
Soon enough, the giant snake comes in after them, and the snake ends up getting Paul instead. It crushes his bones and eats him head first, still mostly alive. Yum.
Mm.
The snake then chases Terry and pukes up Paul, who winks at her as he dies. Or maybe he's already dead at that point. It's kind of a joke.
That wink, though.
He's got this creepy wink. Yeah.
Lecherous. How does he manage to be lecherous still?
Danny pins the snake to the dock with a pickaxe and then pours fuel all over it. The fuel explodes, and it looks like the snake is toast, is badly burnt, but alive when it hits the water. Of course, since it's a horror movie, it jumps back up, and Danny kills it with an axe. Danny, Terry, and the recovering Stephen refuel the boat and head back to civilization. On the way, Stephen gets a look at the lost tribesmen, so the trip isn't a complete waste of time for them.
Yay. Happy ending.
Yeah, for some of them.
For a few of them.
John Boyd has an accent like Scarface, but he's from Paraguay, he says, not Cuba. You can tell by how he holds his mouth that he's evil with a capital E.
Oh, you betcha.
He's not fooling nobody. His overacting is probably the worst part of the film and probably also the highlight of the film.
It's both the worst and the best.
Chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
That wink after the snake regurgitates it makes it all worth it, though.
Yeah, it does.
Jonathan Hyde as Warren he comes on the screen. I'm like, oh, they couldn't afford Tim Curry.
And it turns out they did try to get Tim Curry.
they tried to get him for the role, but he was busy doing something else. Yeah, this is Tim Curry with a different face.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're always walking through chest-high water in the Amazon, and we all know nothing nice lives there. Even without a 90-foot snake, the small ones are bad enough. The ending is just a big contrived set piece, but overall, it is a fun movie.
Yeah, worth the watch.
And it had like 38 sequels, didn't it?
Several.
A couple at least, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then again, over on HorrorBulletin.com, we also continue Killer Animal Week with Grizzly, starring Christopher George, Andrew Pine, Richard Jekyll, and Joan McCall. It's just one bear, but it's a big one, and it causes a surprising amount of chaos and drama.
It gets around.
The film moves at a steady, a little bit slow pace and seems dated, but overall, it was a decent watch. We didn't regret it.
Didn't regret it, no.
And also Piranha, starring Bradford Dillman, Heather Menzies Europe, Kevin Urich. I'm eating these names up today.
That's all right.
Kevin McCarthy, Keenan Wynn, Dick Miller, and Barbara Steele. So lots of people you recognize. And this is a good one that kind of still holds up for entertainment value. There is a little humor here with a faint aroma of satire, but it's mostly serious horror. The effects are effective. There's a decent body count. And the story, if a little far-fetched at times, moves pretty well.
Stephen King referred to this as the best of the Jaws ripoffs.
And it basically is. It's a killer fish.
Mm-hmm. Similar.
The mayor doesn't want to close the lake or whatever it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, I think we liked everything this week, didn't we? We didn't trash on any of these.
We didn't hate anything.
All right. Tune in next week when we're going to have a couple of new movies. What are we going to have? Some stuff.
Some stuff. You always ask.
We're going to have some indie films. We like indie films.
Oh, The Gates of Hell? Are we doing The Gates of Hell?
We'll be doing The Gates of Hell.
All right.
I'm looking.
Look faster.
They're hidden.
We've got dead air.
We'll talk.
That's the trouble. We've watched many, many movies, and I don't know. I don't have the list that, we don't know. I don't know what the next week of the
We'll be
podcast
talking
is
about a
gonna
very
be.
strange short called The Wheel of Heaven.
Okay.
It's not exactly short. It's
No,
like an hour long.
No, it's a full-lengthish.
We did a
Actually-
review several months back about The Blood of the Dinosaurs,
Which was a short.
which was a short, but that was just a segment of this film.
That was kind of like a Bill Nye the Science Guy meets a cooking show.
There's a lot more to this one.
And that's what that short was. And that is a segment in this longer thing, which I really, really liked.
We'll also talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, probably the most hyped movie of the year. Did we like it? Did we not?
Is
You'll
it
have to
worth
find
the
out.
hype?
And Exorcist Believer, another one that's getting a lot of advertising. Did we like it or did we hate
They
it?
sunk a lot of money into plugging that one, didn't they?
The Hive, a very strange home invasion kind of movie.
An indie kind of movie.
And Bloodthirst, a vampire film.
I like vampires.
Beyond the Gates of Hell.
That's the hell one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't remember the full Beyond the Gates of Hell.
That's like 6 movies. We're going to have a weird week next week.
Uh-oh.
But we're going to cover all those.
We're overbooked.
Well, probably we are a little overbooked. Too many new movies to get out real quick. All right. Well, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.